Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to call this meeting to order. Thank you all for attending tonight. First of all, welcome to our new council chambers. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes here to thank facility staff led by Ray Osmond. Earlier today I saw staff members John Whipp and Charles Cosgrove in here working hard. They've done a marvelous job to improve our council chambers, and this is kind of a legacy expense here that the town has borne, but I think it's going to be good for the next 20 years or so. So very glad that the previous council has gone ahead and undertaken this work, and I think it's going to be great. It's going to improve the communication of council sessions. These sessions are being live streamed directly. You see the cameras up on the walls here, and I don't believe Rogers has us tonight, but there's some technical glitches there, but they'll get them worked out. But it is being live streamed through our website and YouTube to the universe and beyond. So let's get started. If we can call in Mr. Nairn here, Elfie himself. We're going to please stand, remove your hats, and let's sing the national anthem. Thank you. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all us must command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you, Mr. Nairn. Could I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous council meeting? Councillor Peters, second Deputy Mayor McIntosh. All in favor? Opposed? No, carried. Okay, we're going to get right into, I guess, a presentation, delegation of Ms. Slumsky from BDO Dunwoody. No? Sorry? Rise and report. Are we doing the rise and report? Okay. Sorry. A little protocol glitch there. So we're going to report on matters that occurred during the closed session earlier this evening. If I can ask for Ms. Post, if you would please give our response on Library Board Committee, please.
Absolutely. I'd like to put forward a motion to appoint the following 5 individuals to the Library Board for this term. Shelley Bergant, Ben McDonald, Sherry Marks, William Ray, and Patrick Neely. And I'm just looking for a seconder.
Councillor Andrews, second the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. We also have a Police Service Board appointment. Councillor Taylor. Oh, sorry, Councillor Deputy Mayor McIntosh, sorry.
I would like to put forward a motion for Ian McSweeney to be on the Police Services Board.
Second, Councillor Post. All in favor? Carried. Now we have also an issue regarding the Pullen Well. Councillor Taylor.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. If everybody could bear with me, this is the longest motion of the evening. I'm going to read it. Whereas Laurel Park Investments Incorporated and Hammett Investments Limited, the developer, are the owner of the lands in the township of Amaranth and plan to develop a residential subdivision. And whereas the Pullen Well, a significant potential water source for certain residents of the township of Amaranth and the town of Orangeville, is located on those lands. And whereas negotiations have been ongoing for more than a decade between the developer, the township of Amaranth, and the town of Orangeville to connect the Pullen Well to the town's water supply system to provide water to residents of the town of Orangeville and certain residents of the township of Amaranth. And whereas the developer and the town entered into an agreement and portions of the developer's lands comprising approximately 42.41 acres of land within the draft approved subdivisions, and it's 22T-04004 and 22T-02002, including the land on which the Pullen Well is situated and was transferred from the developer to the town in exchange for a portion of the lands owned by the town and known as the former Humber lands. And whereas subsequent to the transfer of the land to the town, the township of Amaranth commenced a legal action challenging the transaction on the basis that the developer required the consent of the township of Amaranth to such transfer, and that the township of Amaranth had not provided such consent. And whereas the consent of the township of Amaranth would not be required if the town acquired all the developer's land within the draft approved subdivisions 22T-04004 and 22T-02002 in the township of Amaranth. And whereas ownership of the land on which the Pullen Well is located would allow the town to expand its water supply system to protect and maintain long-term water supply for residents of the town of Orangeville and certain residents of the township of Amaranth. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to commence negotiations with the developer for the purpose of acquiring all the developer's lands within the draft approved subdivisions 22T-04004 and 22T-02002 in the township of Amaranth, and that staff be directed to seek appropriate legal and other advice regarding the potential restructuring of the town of Orangeville, including, as defined in the Municipal Act, Section 172, Part A, annexing part of a municipality to another municipality, and Part B, annexing a geographic area that does not form part of a municipality to a municipality. And finally, and that staff report to council when appropriate.
Okay, may I have a seconder for that? Councillor Sherwood? All in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Now we have a presentation, I believe. Is Ms. Slumsky here? There she is. Hi, Sally. How are you? Thank you for coming. Ms. Slumsky is going to give us a report on audited financial statements from 2017, I believe. Thank you.
Your Worship, members of council, staff, and guests. It's a little bit nerve-wracking actually doing the first presentation to a new council. So my role here this evening is in the role of auditor, and as you're aware, BDO are the auditors for the town of Orangeville. And my focus will be on our report to council, which is the auditor's piece. And I don't really intend to present the financial statements themselves, which are the management's piece, but certainly between the treasurer and myself, if there are questions on the financial statements, I'm sure that together we would be happy to address those. So let me just start out by expressing appreciation to town staff. It makes our job much easier when we have good cooperation and support from a municipal finance department. And also added to that, the finance department has made some incredible changes in the financial reporting system for the town of Orangeville. And my personal opinion is that you have a great reporting system now going forward, which has been a few years in the works. So our report, first of all, the status of the audit. So as of the date of this final report, we've substantially completed our audit. of the 2017 consolidated financial statements, pending completion of just the items outlined in our report, which include subsequent events review up to the date of our auditor's report and approval of the consolidated statements by council this evening. Terms of reference, just a reminder that our overall responsibility is to form and express an opinion on the consolidated financial statements. These consolidated statements are prepared by management with oversight by those charged with governance. The audit of the consolidated financial statements does not relieve management or those charged with governance of their responsibilities, and the scope of our work was also confirmed in the engagement letter, which was an appendix in your package. Engagement objectives primarily are to form and express an audit opinion on the consolidated financial statements, as well as present any significant findings to council, provide constructive comments to management, consult throughout the course of the year, and also express an opinion on the audited financial statements of the BIA and the library, as well as the review financial statements for ORDC. I confirmed that BDO is certainly independent of the town of Orangeville and its boards and entities. For audit purposes, we use a concept called materiality, and basically misstatements, including omitted financial statement disclosures, are considered to be material if they individually or in aggregate could reasonably be corrected to influence the economic decisions of users of the financial statements, as certainly those key users would be members of council. And we will communicate any unadjusted differences to council. We actually refer to an appendices. If you looked at the appendices, there's no unadjusted differences on that statement. Any differences that were found were discussed and adjusted for by management. Audit findings, accounting and audit matters. Litigation, we have discussed with management, and they've indicated there are no material claims not covered by insurance throughout or outstanding against the town. Significant accounting policies, estimates, and judgments. Significant accounting policies are disclosed in the financial statements, and there were no changes in accounting policies in 2017. Some of the areas of significant estimate in your financial statements include post-employment benefits or the liability for employee future benefits, WSIB, liability for WSIB, amortization or depreciation of capital assets, landfill post-closure liability because there is one closed landfill site that still has ongoing monitoring costs, and taxation revenue estimate. At any given point in time, there may be claims to or cases put forward to have property taxes adjusted, and there are estimates based upon probabilities that are made at year end. Also in our report to council, we refer to a fraud discussion, and certainly don't expect there to be a fraud discussion in an open council meeting. But did want to make council aware that currently we are not aware of any actual suspected or alleged fraud. And also just a reminder to council that at any point in time during the course of the year, if you become aware of or have a concern with a potential fraud, you certainly should be bringing that to the attention of your auditors. And auditors' responsibility for detecting fraud. We are responsible for planning and performing an audit to obtain reasonable assurance that the statements are free of material misstatement, whether caused by error or whether caused by fraud. Internal control matters. During the course of the audit, we do document and review internal control systems. We actually use a combined audit approach, which means that we do rely upon and test certain internal control systems within the town of Orangeville. And certainly we are required to report to you if we found any significant deficiencies in internal controls, and no significant deficiencies were noted. Then last but not least, I will jump to the independent auditor's report because that's primarily what we are hired to do. And so the independent auditor's report is actually in the appendices in the report to council. But it's kind of broken down into different areas. First, management's responsibility for the consolidated financial statements. So management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these consolidated financial statements in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards, and for such internal control as management determines is necessary to enable the preparation of consolidated financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Auditor's responsibility, our responsibility is to express an opinion on these consolidated financial statements based on our audit. We conducted our audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. Those require that we comply with ethical requirements and plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the statements are free of material misstatement. And then jumping down to the very final paragraph in our auditor's report, which is the auditor's opinion. In our opinion, the consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the corporation of the town of Orangeville as of December 31st, 2017, and the results of its operations, changes in net debt and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. And I'll emphasize kind of a couple of things. One, it's what we refer to as a clean opinion, which means that we were able to obtain the audit evidence and come to the conclusions that you want your auditors to be able to arrive at. And the other is that these statements are presented in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. Public sector accounting standards, some people agree with, some people don't agree with, but you are required from an external reporting perspective to report under public sector accounting standards. I would expect that at year end will likely be the only time that council will ever really see and receive public sector accounting standards-based financial statements because they're not the format of financial statement the council will use regularly for decision making. And there are many differences, and I appreciate that members of council are new. Some have had exposure to public sector statements before. They are very different, and so I will encourage you to always ask lots of questions because if you don't ask, you won't understand. So I think I will stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, councillors, do we have any questions for Ms. Lumsky? Councillor Andrews.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for your thorough presentation. This will be through you, Mayor Brown, to, I guess, a couple of staff too as well, just for some clarification. And again, I don't know how detailed we can get this evening on this particular report. And you're absolutely right, for those of us who've had the opportunity to deal with the public sector financial statements. There are just a couple of curiosities that I have, one of which is under liabilities, and this would be found under the landfill site. And this is looking at a particular increase. Note number 12, I guess it's on page number 23. And it's under, defined as an increase of the cost for the landfill site. An increase of about 16% is my calculation from 2017 or 2016, 448,349 to 2017 of 519,751. Is there an explanation on the increase? And again, this is just out of curiosity, so I'm not sure who would be responsible to answer that, but
I may need Mark's assistance with this. Oh, sorry, through your worship. But certainly the liability is based on current monitoring and maintenance and consulting costs. There's present value factors, a number of different factors that actually come into play within that calculation.
okay.
I don't know if you have anything further. Mark, that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add is that public sector accounting standards requires that any sort of landfill, should you have one, basically has to record a liability in the financial statements for future costs of closing down that landfill in an environmentally friendly sort of way. And so what this calculation does is an attempt to say that, you know, we do have a landfill. It's not necessarily in use. However, there will be ongoing monitoring type costs that will be ongoing for a very long time. I believe in this case it was 60 years.
60 years, I noticed, yes.
And so there's a calculation that basically then estimates, well, if there's an annual estimate of $13,000 to monitor that particular site, then there's a liability in place today to do that. So
Okay.
that's what that is.
Great, thank you very much.
And our auditors just reminded me that the reason for the increase was a change in the discount rate, which is an interest rate that's used in the calculation. So it's not an actual an addition in the cost. It's just an addition in a change in the rate, which affects the amount of liability.
Great, thank you very much.
Any other, yes, Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the treasurer.
Mike, you put your mic on? There you go.
Thank you. First rookie mistake. I did follow up with the treasurer through email, but I think the public might be interested in understanding this as well. And it's simply regarding the Hydro Corporation. Specifically, the dividend increased basically twofold, which stands out on the financials considering that the revenues and expenses didn't keep up with that. And you did provide an explanation. I just think it might be in the public interest if we provided that clarification as well while you're there. If you could.
Sure. Through you, Your Worship, yes, essentially the dividend from Hydro did increase quite significantly year over year. There was a couple of factors for that. One main reason for that is there was a one-time special dividend of $150,000 to the municipality, to the town of Orangeville. And that was directly related to the town purchasing the land from Orangeville Hydro where the police station resides. So in the past, when I believe it was in 2005, if I'm not mistaken, the police portion of that building was built, and the town owned that building. And so we had an agreement that we owned the town, or owned the building, built the building, paid for the building. However, the land itself was actually under Orangeville Hydro's name. In 2017, we went ahead and severed that land so that there would be two parcels, one owned by the town with the Orangeville Police Service, and then one owned by Hydro. And in order to do that, we did have to physically exchange some money at market value for that piece of land, which was $150,000. And so since we provided the $150,000, the Orangeville Hydro essentially ended up returning the $150,000 by way of dividend. As a result, they didn't need the cash.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Your Worship, I've read the report. I have no further questions, and it would be my suggestion that we receive the report and approve the consolidated financial statements.
There no other questions? You're seconding that? Very good. All in favor? Oh, you have another, sorry, do you have another question? All in favor? Okay. Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we just missed something as we came into the meeting, and I just been asked to read this out at each of our council meetings, and I'll take a moment here to read this. This meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcasts. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. To avoid disruptions during our meeting, we'd appreciate if members of the audience would turn off or mute your cell phones, Blackberries, other personal digital device. Orangeville Town Council welcomes and encourages members of the public to comment on matters of interest to them. However, Delegates are cautioned that derogatory or inappropriate remarks may constitute slander and could potentially lead to legal action against them. If such comments are made, the delegate will not be permitted to continue speaking, and the comments will not be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Thank you. Moving on to staff reports, 10.1, Communities in Bloom Committee recommendations. Go ahead. Yes, Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Through you to Mr. Rosman, I noticed in the earlier minutes, as there were a series of minutes from Communities in Bloom, the original appointment was for one attendee for the national conference. Sorry, your mic is not. It's on. Maybe I'm not in the right spot.
Scratchy.
Scratchy. Not an IT guy. Are you guys off? Is this any better? Okay, maybe it's the multiple mic issue. Okay, sorry. I will start over. In an earlier set of minutes from Communities in Bloom, there was one appointee to attend the national conference for Communities in Bloom. The recommendation coming forward is now for two. And I was just, was that just for the sake of the rollover of funds? Is there a need for two attendees to that? Just maybe you could speak to the recommendation.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Peters. On occasion, what happened in this past year is that we had the invitation to a national awards. We had an opportunity to probably win an award, so they voted for two to attend. That can change in a year. It could be one or it could be two, depending on what they're doing each year. In this case, it was two. And next year, they'll open to send one person at this point.
Yes, my question's kind of along the same lines. Don't get me wrong, I support Communities in Bloom 100%, but with a 5% tax increase, we're sending not only two committee members, we're sending one councillor as a rule. That's $2,000 or $3,000. I just wonder in this new era of fiscal responsibility that we're going to be seeing if this is such a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion here? Yes, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Osman, and I apologize, Mr. Osman, I should have followed up with you prior to ask this question, but it actually doesn't state the amount of money here, and I may have missed it, but how much is it that we're supporting to spend here?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Taylor, first of all, the decision to send the councillor was additional funds from council itself to the Communities in Bloom Committee. They had funded in their budget a trip, and the second trip was funded, if I recall, it was around $2,500 for the second person, the councillor in this case, to travel to the conference and awards ceremony. So they budget anywhere between $1,800 and $2,500 to go for a trip or for a full conference package.
Mr. Osman, that would be per person, correct, for each?
That would be correct.
So this is in the order of $5,000 then, this spend then, is that correct?
It could be, Your Worship, depending on the location and how far they need to travel. In this case, the route west, I believe, was in Calgary.
Maybe I could ask Mr. Brennan, historically, what's the protocol been as far as sending a councillor on this trip?
Your Worship, through you, Communities in Bloom has only been back in our communities for a couple of years. We've been quite successful with the work of the community members and committee members of being lucky in winning the awards. I think last year was the first year that we sent a councillor and some reps to the award ceremony. I think it was in Calgary. But again, going forward, it's a decision of this council to if they want a councillor to go.
Right, right. Well, Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, you might just don't have that trouble again. If it's through you, I suppose to the rest of council, if it's amenable, I would propose amending the recommendation or the motion to approve the transfer funds over to the next operating budget and direct staff that keep that line in there, but perhaps remove the line about the allocation of what those funds represent. So to make the move of those funds to the next year's operating budget and to make the recommendations to staff to undergo the repairs, but again, to take away the earmark specifically for what those funds represent.
Well, I know that the Community in Bloom's committee has done some wonderful work here in town, and I would think it would be a good thing for our town to be represented at a national function like this. I'm just questioning whether 3 people need to go. My personal opinion would be I would support sending 1 member of the committee, and I don't think another council member would need to accompany them. That's just my personal thoughts on it right now. And I would like to make a friendly amendment to your amendment, maybe to suggest that we apportion enough monies to send 1 committee member and then allow the balance of the funds to fall forward into that committee again for next year to be apportioned as they see fit, including some of the repairs that are listed here. Could I have a seconder maybe for my friendly amendment? Councillor Andrews. Any further discussion on that? No? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. That's correct. That's correct. So that would be just send 1 member to the Communities in Bloom celebration and conference in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, rather than 2. Okay, so let's go to the next item. We've got 10.2, Heritage Orangeville Committee, interpretive sign for Town Hall. Recommendation is that the council approve the installation of an interpretive sign near the entrance to Town Hall, 87 Broadway, and that the funds of approximately $4,500 remaining in the 2018 Heritage Orangeville Committee budget be placed in a project carry-forward account for the completion of this project in 2019. Any comments from councillors? Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Through you, Mayor Brown, to Mr. Osman, a question I have based on 10.2. First of all, is it customary to allocate remaining committee funds at the end of a term to something like this? And can you briefly describe the type of sign that is proposed, and will there be an RFP process for that sign?
Your worship, through to Councillor Andrews. Yes, it is customary to carry forward any funding that was left over. If there was a project that was designated for a particular year, then it would be carried over to complete that project. In this case, the funds were there in Heritage for that particular sign. It'd be similar to signs you see around the blue metal signs that are used to depict all the various heritage sites. And we go through a purchasing process. In this case, at the dollar value, you wouldn't probably use an RFP, but an RFQ. And you find you get 3 prices and figure out which one is the best price for us. The funding was left over in 2018. They were working on that particular project, and that's why you carry it over. It can be carried over, but still be discussed again in budget 2019, depending how you want to proceed with that. So it's a call of the council.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
I hate to be the spoiler, but again, I have a concern. This last council left us with a tax increase of almost 5%, and we've got to find a lot of money this year. I see a lot of signs around, a lot of signs. And I'd like to direct this next question to Mr. Villeneuve. We have some nice signs at Mill Creek, multiple signs at Mill Creek. I just wonder what the cost of those individual signs were. I don't know if he has that figure or not.
There you go.
Confusing. Thank you, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor McIntosh. So I did ask the question earlier today. There are quite a few signs. My understanding is that's gone on Mill Street. There's been 3 signs that were around the $2,500 mark. And then there's been some interpretive signs that provide a bit of the history along with the area, and my understanding is those ones were around $6,500.
Wow.
Again, just a statement. I just think, you know, with taxes the way they are, we need to get them under control before we start having nice to haves. We need wants, needs. Thank you.
Right. I'm following on Deputy Mayor McIntosh's comment. I think there needs to be a little more austerity. I think we've had a number of these wayfinding signs. I'd like to, you know, rethink this going forward. There's other ways to communicate, and we are going to go down some of those paths in the future. As far as the recommendation here, I would make a motion to not carry this money forward. That would be my recommendation. Yes, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. More of a comment than a question. I think the Heritage Orangeville Committee has done great work in difficult times. I think that the signs that are around our town, although they do cost some money, I think they have contributed to making our town a more interesting and vibrant place. I certainly appreciate how they look. I wouldn't have an issue supporting this the way it's written.
Fair enough. Okay, so we have an amendment to alter this recommendation to not. Sorry, go ahead. Yes. I was about to. Yes, thank you. And I'm wondering if anybody wants to second my amendment to this recommendation, which was to not put the money forward again. Seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Any further comment on that before we vote on it? Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Through you, Mayor Brown, I'm wondering if we might be able to get staff, once we have an idea of the costing that could be, what this sign could cost. If there's a way that we could look at, you know, some happy medium, and I certainly understand Deputy Mayor's McIntosh's point here, but, you know, at the same time, to Councillor Taylor's point, you know, this is a focal point. This is something, this is a identity marker that in consistent visual parts of our community need to be certainly part of what we are stating to our community and those that may be coming into our community. So I'm wondering if we could, through staff, request input on a possible cost for a more moderate sign that might make the members of council look at this a little more positively.
Right. Well, my thoughts were that, you know, this sign program is there, that there probably will be opportunities going forward, but we're in a new council here with some challenges that we've got. I'd prefer maybe to either accept my motion or table this to a future council meeting when, you know, perhaps after or during our budget time when we understand the situation a little bit better. We, for the gallery that's here and the press, you know, we have 400 or 500 pages of budget items that we're going to be reviewing over the next couple of weeks and into January and February. So I personally don't think that, I believe our town hall is beautiful as it is. I think, I don't know that another sign at $4,500 is needed here. So this is the reason that I'm suggesting that we hold this right now, and we can address it again in the near future. And I'm not, you know, Councillor Taylor, I'm not opposed to what's been done so far. I just think we need to get a better handle on where we're at with our budget. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I just want to let you know that I will be supporting your amendment. I too feel that this is something that we could possibly look at in the 2019 budget. So you will be getting my support.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my understanding that this $4,500 was from a previous budget, and that was discretionary spending for the Heritage Committee. And so with the encouragement of that committee to keep the budget intact, that, you know, the sign would be sort of at an upside limit of $4,500. I support Councillor Taylor's comments in that, you know, the advancement of the heritage and cultural component is important. And if we want to talk about 2019 budget issues, that would be the discussion we have under how much is allotted to various committees. So I would not be supporting the current motion.
Fair enough. Okay, so I'm going to defer here to Town Clerk. So we shall have a vote on my amendment to this, and then we will take it up again, perhaps. Is that correct?
Yes, I would call the vote on your motion, and then if that doesn't pass, there's an opportunity for a second one.
Okay, we'll call for a vote. So all in favor of my amendment to cancel this? Okay, and all opposed? Okay, so my motion has been defeated. Now perhaps we can go back to Councillor Taylor's recommendation to accept as the staff report. Do we need a seconder for that? Councillor Peters. Now we need to vote on this. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Wow. That's interesting. Okay. So I'm going to ask for some guidance here. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Post.
Sorry, I was going to make a comment earlier.
Yes.
I would move the motion very similar to as written, perhaps though that it be carried into the 2019 budget for further consideration, perhaps earmarked for the interpretive signage, but with the understanding that there would be a bit of a review on how that interpretive signage project is going forward, and I don't know what the right way to do that. Maybe you can help me, Madam Clerk.
Sorry, I didn't catch all of those opposed to the motion.
Councillor Yes, Councillor Post, yes. Right, so, again, maybe I can ask to Mr. Brennan here on budgeting. The Heritage Committee has a budget, so if we agree to carry this forward, they have that money now and they can unilaterally do what they wish with it. Is that correct?
Your Worship, through you, the committee is coming back asking for permission to move forward. Maybe if council is willing to move the funds forward into 2019 budget, it can also stipulate that no action to be taken until completion of budget, 2019 budget as a whole. And you can address it at that time.
Right. Councillor Taylor, could you amend your recommendation along those lines? Would that make sense?
That would be perfectly fine, thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation then, as staff has written it here, with the proviso that no expenditure gets made until budget deliberations are, sorry.
So if I might.
Madam Clerk.
Sorry if I'm too close.
Yeah.
The resolution would be that the funds of approximately $4,500 remaining in the 2018 Heritage Orangeville Committee budget be placed in a project carry forward account and that no expenditures be made until approval of the 2019 budget.
That's what I believe, yes, correct. I would second Councillor Taylor's motion. Can we have a vote on that? All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. 10.3, this is Access Orangeville. Transfer of 2018 operating budget to Accessibility Reserve. Recommendation is that $2,800 from the 2018 Access Orangeville operating budget be transferred to the Accessibility Reserve account for the purchase in 2019 of brochures promoting the committee and also a cenotaph walkway holdback of 5% as per tender. And that any surplus operating funds from the 2018 Access Orangeville operating budget be transferred to the Accessibility Reserve account for use in 2019 for the following projects: curb cut striping program, free swim and skate program, portable ramp subsidy program, accessible swings, picnic tables, and benches program. Do we have any comment from councillors? Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. As someone who just ran an election campaign and had a bunch of brochures left over, I worry about spending $2,000 on brochures. They're sitting in my basement now, gathering dust.
Yes.
And if I may, through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Osmond, and Mr. Osmond, I apologize again, I should have thought of this ahead of time and had sent you the question, so I'll get more efficient as time goes on. But in your opinion, is spending $2,000 on brochures for this committee the best thing, or would potentially social media or other avenues be a better spend of our taxpayers' money?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor. The decision to spend any kind of funds respect to these committees is not one of the department. It's in actual fact a decision of that committee, and they're busy committees, and throughout the year they forecast trying to get certain things done. In the case of the brochures of the Accessibility Committee of the town was destined to be updated, and it was really out of date in actual fact, because they're in a position where they were using old brochures. These brochures are used for various committees, for events throughout the town, and when they deal with businesses, when they're looking at doing upgrades to their buildings and making them accessible and those kinds of things. So it's not just about promoting the committee itself, it's about promoting the kinds of things that they fund and activities that they do as a committee. The $800 is actually an holdback on a project which they spent for the cenotaph, and they have to carry that money forward because it's a 12-month holdback under the Lien Act. So it's just legitimate funds. The $2,800 is essentially pretty much what's left in that account. What you see on the list is the kinds of things that they do fund throughout the year. The accessibility, for instance, the free swim and skate program is a program so that families can participate in skate and swim at no cost, and it opens the door to those who are basically wouldn't be able to afford it or otherwise don't get access.
Any other comments from councillors? Yes, Councillor Post.
I would be happy to support this motion as written, just with the one change that, because I'm in agreement with Councillor Taylor, that I think that taking that $2,000 that's allocated right now for brochures and instead putting it into an accessibility reserve would make more sense to fund some of the other projects that I think are really valuable. However, that $800 for the Cenotaph Walkway, if I'm right, Mr. Osmond, that one does need to be allocated for that specifically. So I would be happy just making that one change, and then I'd be happy to move that motion.
Do we have a seconder for this amendment to the motion? Yes, Councillor Andrews. Any further discussion on that change? When we have a vote on that, all in favor? Okay. So we have amended that to put the $2,000 and Madam Clerk into reserve for the Accessibility Committee to use on other programs. 10.4. This is just a little bit of housekeeping here. The 2019 council schedule has been published in report CL 2018-13. We just have a recommendation to receive that report. May I have a motion? Council, sorry, you have to speak to that. Council Taylor, go ahead.
If I could, I'd like to speak to it. It's a personal plea. As we all become councillors, and we have discussed this in closed session as well, but as we become councillors and we become used to what's going on and our personal lives and work lives collide with these new roles that we have, I'd just like to bring the public to the attention of my own personal situation, and that is I'll miss the very first meeting of the new year because I have a business commitment. My suggestion to council would be that we move the budget meeting from the 21st to the 14th, and then the council meeting would occur on the 21st. I would like this done because I would prefer to miss a budget meeting than a council meeting. I realize that we'll all miss meetings throughout the year. It just feels symbolic, and I'm very uncomfortable with missing the very first council meeting of the year, and would appreciate some support on doing so. So I would still miss a meeting, which would be the 14th, but I'd prefer it not to be a council meeting.
Okay, so run that by me one more time.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship, for considering this. I would like the budget meeting from the 21st moved to the 14th, and I'd like the council meeting moved from the 14th to the 21st.
Yes, so we better send this off to staff here before we have a consideration. Maybe Mr. Villeneuve might have an issue with this. I don't know. We're talking about advancing budget discussions by a week.
Through you, Your Worship, I don't see a particular issue with that. We are preparing the budget packages now, as you'll note in a presentation later on tonight. So there shouldn't be an issue with timing in January.
Well, as much as I like Mr. Taylor, I'm concerned that this is setting some sort of precedence about changing a council schedule that's kind of been set at this point. So I appreciate his concern. We're trying to, we're getting feedback here, eh? Is that right? You guys hearing that out there? Yeah. Sorry, I guess I'm maybe talking too closely. I'm just wondering, there was some discussion about taking part in meetings electronically, and I'm just wondering, Madam Clerk, is that possible, and can Mr. Taylor take part in a meeting in a remote location?
It won't be possible for a meeting in January. We have to amend the procedure bylaw, and there is some work to be done before we can present a report to council on recommendations.
Right. Okay. Councillor Taylor.
Again, council is much bigger than one person. I just felt that I would be remiss if I didn't ask. So please do as you.
We're going to have a vote.
We're going
to have
council,
a vote. So,
but I felt like I didn't want it to go by.
I understand, and I know you've announced that you've checked the schedule for 2019. That's the only meeting that is an issue with you. So I appreciate that. So, Councillor Taylor's asking for a swap here of 21st and 14th. Budget meeting on the 14th and council meeting on the 21st. Any further comment? Does anybody want to second that motion? Sorry, Madam Clerk, did you have something to say? Okay, we have a seconder here, Councillor Sherwood. So let's vote on this. All in favor of changing this date? Opposed? I'm sorry, Councillor Taylor. We are not changing that around. Okay, so let's move on here. We have to accept the recommendation of staff. I need somebody to make that motion. Councillor Post, I'm sorry. Second, Deputy Mayor McIntosh. All in favor? Okay. Opposed? This is the council schedule. Opposed? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Taylor opposed. The motion carries. Council schedule as recommended by staff has been received and approved as presented. 10.5. This is a housekeeping amendment to the traffic bylaw. Is there any comment by council members on this recommendation? Councillor Taylor.
I feel like I'm keeping everybody away from going home tonight.
No,
but
you're doing your job, so carry on.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. If I may, through you to Mr. Jones, and again, Mr. Jones, this came up earlier today, so I did not have a chance to speak with you ahead of time, but there was some concern about other overflow parking lots that potentially could be done. And a resident got in touch with me regarding Brown's Farm, specifically the property that's owned by the town on Diane Drive, and wondering if that could potentially be an overnight option for residents as well.
Yes, Mr. Jones. Sorry.
Through your worship to Councillor Taylor, When we were looking at overflow parking lots for the winter, we were looking specifically at parking lots that were in parks that were not going to be utilized during the winter time. Rotary Park and Fenley Park fell into that category. Diane Drive facility is used throughout the winter, and perhaps most importantly, it is the town's emergency management center. At any given time, we may need to utilize that parking lot, and if it's full with overflow parking, that could pose a problem. So in my opinion, it wouldn't make a good candidate.
Any further questions or comments from council? May I have a motion? Yes, Councillor Peters is a motion to recommend acceptance of staff recommendation. Seconder, Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Okay, that motion is passed. 10.6, this is 2019 interim tax levy bylaw, recommended by staff that the report TF 2018-23 dated December 10th, 2018 regarding the 2019 interim tax levy bylaw be received. The bylaw states that a bylaw to provide for the levy and collection of rates or levies for the town of Orangeville for the interim levy for the year 2019. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Sherwood.
Through you, Mayor Brown, to staff, our treasurer, Mark Villeneuve. I was just wondering if the interim due dates could be pushed one day later to coordinate with our senior citizens receiving their OAP and CPP payments. I think it's very important that we that our seniors have an opportunity to get their payments and then be able to pay the taxes in the same time. I'm wondering if it's possible to change that. If you're not able to do it in this particular instance, could you maybe give it some thought in the future for the final due dates, and then in terms in the future, if that could possibly be coordinated with their payments?
Thank you. Through your worship, Councillor Sherwood, it is possible to change the date or at a particular day. There's pros and cons to that. One of the cons is that it actually would provide residents with less of a grace period before interest would accumulate and penalty on their arrears. So as the bylaw reads and how we follow it is that essentially, we do have due dates and we expect to be paid on those dates. However, we only start to charge penalty as of the first of the following month. And so it provides the residents a little bit of a grace period as far as, perhaps they did some online banking or what have you, and it takes a couple extra days to clear. It provides a little bit of grace in that sort of scenario. My understanding is, and I've had the discussion around the seniors and the old age security payments, and I'm certainly no expert, but from what I've been told is that they tend to be paid at the end of the month. And so I'm not sure that delaying one day would solve the issue as around when they would get paid. I believe they still get paid after the due date. However, if it's the wish of council, we can certainly look at it further, delay it an extra day today, and we'll work with that.
Yes, Councillor Sherwood. Thank you, Mr. Villeneuve. Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, just a follow-up. Yes, I did look up the dates, and they are just one day later than your recommendation, still giving a couple days grace for those overflow of payments. So I'm just wondering if I could get support even from fellow members, if you could take that in consideration. I will approve, I will pass this on at this time if it's a big inconvenience, but I'm just hoping that going forward, if you could just maybe be a little bit mindful of that. I think our seniors would really appreciate that, having, like I say, one extra day. I don't know if that's going to make a big difference.
Okay. So we've got a recommendation to make a change to this staff report. Do we have a seconder for that? We do not have a seconder for that. So we're going to go back then and ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation on the interim tax bylaw, TF 2018-23. Do we have a motion? Councillor Post. Seconder, Deputy Mayor McIntosh. So let's call a vote on this. All in favor? Okay, opposed? Councillor Sherwood is opposed. This motion passes. Let's move on to 10.7, 2019 interim borrowing. This recommendation by staff that the report TF 2018-17 interim borrowing dated December 10th, 2018 be received. And this is a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of monies as specified by this bylaw to meet until taxes are collected the current expenditures of the corporation of the town of Orangeville for the year 2019. May I have a motion to accept this recommendation? Councillor Taylor, second. Councillor Andrews, all in favor? This motion passes, thank you. Okay, now we're on to 10.8. This is the discussion about recreational cannabis and retail sales locations in Orangeville. There's been correspondence received from the Upper Grand District School Board, and we have staff recommendation. I'm going to read this in its entirety because I think it's important that people are very interested in this. The report PL 2018-29, recreational cannabis retail sales locations in Orangeville be received, and that the town of Orangeville inform the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario that the town is a willing host municipality for prospective cannabis retail store locations within its jurisdiction, and that council directs staff to report back to council prior to April 1st, 2019 regarding recommended policies to provide a basis for the town's input to the AGCO on prospective retail store authorization applications for proposed cannabis retail store locations within the town, and that council directs staff to review the Town of Orangeville Smoke-Free Municipal Public Spaces Bylaw, number 36-2012, with respect to cannabis consumption, and report back to council with any amendments to Bylaw 36-2012 as may be necessary to account for public consumption of recreational cannabis under the Smoke-Free Ontario Act 2017 as amended. Any questions, comments from council? Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Through you, Mayor Brown. Excuse me. Again, we're not deciding tonight whether cannabis is good or bad. The Alcohol and Gaming Commission has decided this for us. The government has decided this for us. Let's let the Alcohol and Gaming Commission regulate this in town. There's $40 million out there coming to towns that support this. I think we should be there. It's going to happen anyway. The government has made it legal, so I will be supporting option 1. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I am a bit conflicted that this has come forward at this time. It's a unique time in our country and a unique time to be sitting in local government and talking about something that all my life has been on the outskirts. I think it's worthwhile noting I have no expertise in this area. It's not something that I have pursued and I have not inhaled. That said, to me, we should allow this to go through in our town. And why that is I think there's a couple of reasons. The report that was written was excellent. It gave me everything I needed to understand. It will put us at an economic disadvantage versus other areas. Mono could very easily open up a shop. You know, they're right at our border. We will not benefit from this. In addition, the public needs to understand that if you say no now and you opt out now, There's monies that will not be given to us by the upper tier governments, the provincial and the federal governments, and those are in relation to public health and local policing and whatnot. So to not pursue this at this point just doesn't seem like the right thing, although, you know, if I could have gone back 5 years ago, I never thought I'd be giving this speech in a public forum. So in terms of the illegalities, everyone needs to understand it will still be illegal to consume cannabis in public areas. Essentially, smoking would be the same laws applied to cannabis and whatnot. So in my mind, I have no other option but to support this and support it as written by staff. So thank you.
Right. Any further comments? Okay, I need to call for a motion to accept this recommendation from town staff. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, seconder. Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? Passed unanimously. 10.9, cemetery bylaw update and fee schedule. Recommendation by staff that report PW 2018-43 cemetery bylaw update and fee schedule be received. Any comments from council? Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Now, through you, Mayor Brown, to, I'm assuming would be Mr. Jones, if I'm correct. I guess my curiosity, are these fees that are proposed comparable to other cemeteries of comparable size?
Yes, sorry. Recognizing Mr. Jones, I'm sorry.
Through your
Get
worship.
this protocol down, yeah.
Through your worship to Councillor Andrews. Staff did do research and looked into the fees that other cemeteries were charging. Our fees were somewhat lower and out of date, so we have increased our fees to make them consistent with those that are charged by other cemeteries locally.
Okay. And one more question through you, Mayor Brown. This is point L in that report, and it states the town shall not be responsible for any damage to lots and structures or objects or flowers, articles removed on any lot. But what about vandalism? Again, there are, not to say that we've had those types of situations, but is there something embedded in the policy to deal with those types of situations, or is it on a per-case basis?
Mr. Jones.
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Andrews, if there is indeed vandalism, you know, the town will do what we can to assist. To date, happily, this hasn't been something that has been a big issue for us to deal with.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on this recommendation from council? May I have a motion to accept this recommendation? Councillor Peters, second. Councillor Post, all in favor? That is passed unanimously, thank you. 10.10, Orangeville Hydro Limited Board of Directors appointments. This is a recommendation by staff for Ontario Hydro Limited Board of Directors that these appointments be received, and that former council members Warren Maycock and Don Kidd be removed from the Orangeville Hydro Limited Board of Directors effective December 1st, 2018, and that council nominate Mayor Sandy Brown and Deputy Mayor Andy McIntosh to serve on the Orangeville Hydro Limited Board of Directors for 3-year terms or until their successors are appointed. And the council appoint Mayor Sandy Brown as proxy with power of substitution to attend and to vote for the corporation of the town of Orangeville at the shareholders meeting to be held to remove and appoint new members to the Orangeville Hydro Limited Board of Directors and at any adjournments thereof, revoking any proxy previously given, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute this proxy form, and that council direct such proxy to vote in favor of the nominees approved December 10th, 2018. Any comments or questions on this recommendation? Okay, may I have a motion to accept? Councillor Sherwood, seconder. Councillor Taylor, all in favor? Passed unanimously, thank you. Okay, now we're on to item 11, which is a list of committee reports and minutes. And this recommendation is to receive all of them en masse. Any questions or comments on this from council? May I have a motion to accept these minutes? Councillor Post, seconder. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, all in favor? Thank you. Now, I'm just wondering, should there be a break here, or are we good to go continually? I'm just looking. Carry on. Councillor Taylor.
If I may, Your Worship, I just missed out on two things that are in these reports. And Report 11.1 speaks to, it is the Access Orangeville report, and it talks about $300,000 for infrastructure services in the interlock on Broadway. And I don't require anything from council. I just want to bring it forward and say, hey, you know, that has been an issue. It was brought up over the election, and people are complaining about the sidewalk down there, and I think it's something that we should all look into when we're in our budget discussions. And point two would be for me, through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Brennan, the Police Services Board minutes. Why do we have them going all the way back to August? Were they not submitted previously? We have 6 different reports here. I'm just curious what happened with them.
Pardon me? Oh, to the clerk, yes. Madam Clerk,
Through
thank you.
Mayor Brown. Typically, these are presented after they're approved by the committee. Because we haven't had a council meeting since September 24th, that's why we have such a long list of committee minutes.
Fair enough. Yeah, like Councillor Taylor, I do believe there needs to be some remedial work on Broadway, and it's something we're going to have to look at, and there are some issues there. So looking forward to talking about that in the future during our budget discussions. So we have a motion here to accept these minutes. We did it already, didn't we? Sorry. Yes, sorry. Yes, now we're into question period. Okay, so question period. Just to remind those who are going to be asking questions, you have 3 minutes to talk, and we're looking forward to receiving your questions. Yes, Mr. Singh, would you like to step up? Could you, Madam Clerk, the protocol would be to ask name and address. Yes, Mr. Singh, if you could give your full name and address, please.
Narinder Pal Singh, 14 Stewart Court, Orangeville.
Stewart
14
Court.
Stewart Court, Orangeville. Your Worship, Mayor Sandy Brown, heartiest congratulations to you, Deputy Mayor, and all councillors. Today, start of a new era with many hope from residents who elected our Golden Council in our beautiful town of Orangeville 2018-2022. I'm pretty sure all of you have top priority in your mind to take our town to new heights, better place to live and work. My passion is to see my town of Orangeville #1 in every respect. I'm doing my best from last couple of years to make it better place to live and work. I'm pretty sure all council members will be working closely under your mayorship as a team to solve town's long-standing unsolved issues. Thanks, and wish all of you for next 4 years. At the same time, I would like to tell audience and all of you, we will be running 6 vans on New Year's Eve under the Orangeville Against Drunk Driving, so nobody have to drink and drive. So there will be 6 vans running, picking from home, dropping them home safe.
Okay. Do you have a question, Mr. Singh?
Just last, God bless Queen, Canada, Orangeville Council, and residents. Thank you.
Okay, sir. But there was no question, though, Mr. Singh. Just a statement. Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Mr. Sipkema would like to speak, and then Mr. Gristo, it looks like. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Ani Buzo, everybody, how are you? Mayor and council, delightful to see you guys. I just want to mention a few things, and then there's going to be a question, because I just heard there's a question, so I got a question.
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Anyways, I'd like to give my hat off, but I can't got my eagle on there, but my eagle feathers for you guys at the same time. I'd like to really sincerely thank you, everybody, council, staff, and town, for the support, putting up raising of the ceremonial flag. We are still touched by it and honored by your, it was such a great event. Anyways, I wanted to mention something to you very important. Today is a very important day. This is actually the 4th year anniversary from the DCCRC. So we are honored that we got a new council here and hopefully working with us a little strong. But that was a big thing to tell you, that today is our anniversary as a not-for-profit organization in this town of Orangeville, with hopefully working together. The other thing I'd like to address, because I have 3 minutes is almost up. This Saturday at Alder Arena TD Bank, we're having a community gathering. So question is, are you guys coming?
Right. Well, what time is it, Mr.
Oh,
Sipkema?
yeah, sorry. Starts at 11, but for you guys at council, I suggest it be like a half an hour earlier. So we to say greetings? No, it's okay. So it starts at 11 and ends at 4. We're not saying we're not asking you to be there for that whole period of time, because it might be a little too boring for the drums and seeing us all the time. But no, just be nice to say hi, and maybe I got a little gift for you. I can't remember, but anyways.
So
just
to be clear, you
gathering.
said this Saturday at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, 11 till 4.
Okay. Well, I will drop in at some point during that time. Sure.
All right, well,
Thank
even
you-
though
thank
you're a
you for the
little late,
invitation.
we'll be there probably another 20 minutes, half an hour cleanup. So, you know what, you're saving grace. Love you guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sipkema. Appreciate it. Mr. Gristo.
Mayor Brown, Deputy Mayor McIntosh, members of the council. I'm here, I only have a question on the question period. As I understand, on 15.1, there is a report that was submitted by yourself, your worship, to go back to the OPP costing. So my question is council going to give you the opportunity at that time to make a statements or ask some questions, or I have to do it right now on a question period? Because it's only 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But I mean, so that is the question I have for you, your worship.
Mr. Gristo, we've had some discussion about this. I think I've talked to you a bit about policing in the past as well, but the thought here is that we're asking for a costing. There will be that costing delivered in the future, and at that time, we're going to have a full open discussion, weighing both options again. And there will be ample opportunity for public comment at that time. And I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of good information about both police services. My feeling and the reason for bringing this back is for the taxpayers of Orangeville. There are those who don't believe the CAO's report of last year, backed up by the treasurer and by our auditors, talking about millions of dollars in savings. We need to go down that road again. We need to investigate it again thoroughly, and I hope that you will be part of that dialogue in the future. And it's probably a few months away, but today this motion that I'm going to make is to ask town staff to request another OPP costing, and it's not a decision today about going to the OPP. It's to open up the dialogue again. So that's my answer to you.
Well, your worship, I understand that that's not the question I asked, though.
Okay.
The question I did ask, am I given the opportunity when 15.1 on the agenda, it's coming up for discussion, or do I have to make my statements at this time? That was my question. And you suggested too, that you and me, we spoke about the OPP issue. Yeah. Sir, I never had any discussion with you about the OPP.
Okay, fine, Mr. Gristo, appreciate that. But no, when we get to 15.1, that is after our question period, so no, you will not be allowed to address that. That's for council's discussion.
Well, then let me ask a few questions at this time.
Okay, well, we're going to start the clock. We're going to start the clock right now. Just
Okay,
so we
that's
understand.
fine. You can start the clock, no problem.
Okay, go ahead.
Unless you guys change, it used to be 5 minutes. But
No,
maybe
it's 3 minutes.
You changed to 3 minutes.
3 minutes now. Yeah,
Maybe
go ahead.
It used to be 5 minutes.
That's for a delegation. You're not a delegation, right? You
Well,
know the
that's
rules.
fine, but
You
it's
know
a
the rules,
question
Mr.
period.
Gristo. 3 minutes.
I know the rules.
Go ahead.
3 minutes. Okay. The
Carry
first
on.
question is, okay, are you going to hire a consultant to have another OPP costing?
That has not been discussed. Our council will discuss it. That decision has not been made.
Because if you do, I have a major concern with that, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because then maybe council can vote the consultant report down. Here we waste probably $100,000 on our report from the consultant. So that's one of the concerns I have. And I want to mention, maybe you guys should take a note here that the town of St. Martin, they went OPP, and then all of a sudden, they had to go back to their own force, which they couldn't because it was too much money to do that. Mm-hmm. So maybe you should investigate that too. And what happening there, then they amalgamated.
This anecdotal information that you're providing, I'd like you to put it down at the time when we're going to come back to this and bring some accurate information and back it up, and we're happy to receive it.
I can back it up, sir.
Great.
I've done my research. It was a tremendous discussion with the previous council before on this. I don't understand.
I'm a minute here to talk, Mr. Gristo. You
I
got
don't
one more minute. Thank you.
Okay. I don't understand why this council wants to go through the road again. There was public meetings. There was everything out there.
We were elected. We were elected, that's why.
You were elected on just one issue, sir. You were elected on many other issues. So you keep interfering with me, so that's not appropriate either. Because when someone has the floor, you should be listening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gristo. Any further questions from the audience? Mr. McGugan.
Hello, everybody. Ian McGugan, 46 Elm Ave in Orangeville. Just wondered if there's any news on the missing chalice, and are we going to investigate this? Have we called the police? That was you guys are pretty concerned about money here tonight, and that's the money to replace that, and it may have been stolen.
Right. Well, you're talking about the missing chain of office.
Yes, sir.
Is that right? Yeah. Yes, well, we're all concerned about that. It's very disappointing that that has been misplaced. CAO Brennan and myself have had some discussions about that, and we have not made a decision yet on how that will be put forward for investigation. But yeah, it's very disappointing, Mr. McGugan, and I'm sure everyone at this council table is concerned, and certainly these symbolic items, it appears that it's thousands of dollars to replace them. So in an era of austerity that we're trying to bring forward here, it's disappointing to have to be dealing with that. And anyway, we'll look at it in the future, but thank you for your comments. Any further questions from the audience? Okay, that being the case, we shall move along here. So we've had some correspondence here from our attorneys. The recommendation is that the council approve the following resolution as the shareholder of the Orangeville Railway Development Corp. and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the required shareholder resolution on behalf of the town. Whereas the shareholder has determined that the board of directors of the corporation shall consist of the mayor, the deputy mayor, and 5 councillors of the corporation of the town of Orangeville, as elected from time to time. And whereas the 2018 municipal election resulted in the election of the following persons to the following positions: Mayor Sandy Brown, Deputy Mayor Andy McIntosh, Councilors Todd Taylor, Grant Peters, Debbie Sherwood, Joe Andrews, and Lisa Post. Now therefore be it resolved that the following persons be and they are hereby removed as directors of the corporation: Jeremy Williams, Warren Maycock, Scott Wilson, Sylvia Bradley, Gail Campbell, Nick Garisto, and Don Kidd, and that the following persons be and they are hereby elected to be the directors of the corporation to hold office until his or her successors is elected or appointed: Sandy Brown, Andy McIntosh, Todd Taylor, Grant Peters, Debbie Sherwood, Joe Andrews, and Lisa Post. So, may I have a motion to accept that recommendation? Councillor Taylor, second. Councillor Andrews, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, now we have 13.2. This is Credit Valley Conservation appointments. There's a recommendation that Councillor Grant Peters be appointed to the Credit Valley Conservation Authority Board of Directors for a 4-year term, commencing January 1st, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2022, or until a successor is appointed. Any discussion? May I have a motion? Councillor Post, seconder, Councillor Taylor, all in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. Okay. We have some information items. This is a little bit of housekeeping here. Items 14.1 through 14.10. I'll just list them. Arts and Culture Committee Annual Report, Orangeville Seniors and Age Friendly Community Committee 2018 Annual Report, Heritage Orangeville 2018 Annual Report, Business Retention and Expansion Initiative, Professional, Scientific and Technical Sector, Drinking Water Quality Management System Update, Heritage Permit Application, another Heritage Permit Application, Township of Amaranth, November 14th, 2018, North American Free Trade Agreement Dairy Supply Management Program, Township of East Garifracta, November 13th, 2018, Resolution Re Emergency Management Civil Protection, and Town of Mono, October 15th, 2018, Resolution Re Commercial Water Bottling Facilities. Recommendation is that the above items listed shall be received. Any discussion? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to speak to 14.8, which is on page 325, just regarding the Dairy Supply Management Program. I understand that townships are concerned about that. As a Canadian, I am concerned about this. To me, though, the agreement has been signed. This council missed the chance to react to this. I don't think that Orangeville actually needs to do anything at this point. The ship has sailed. I would just recommend we pass.
Right. Very good. Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Through you, Your Worship, to, I think it would be Mr. Osmond in this case. First of all, this is item 14.4, which is the business retention. And I first of all wanted to compliment the ED staff for their commitment to this process in obtaining some, I think, very important information from the various sectors. I think the survey, if I recall, had a lot to do with the manufacturing side. And I think that the town staff and the committee members should be complimented for what they put together as a very successful survey. I guess the question I have for you would be that, is the same process going to be applied for the survey team as reported in this document? And the only reason I'm asking is I just want to be assured that there's an opportunity for the right people to be at that particular table who are going to be conducting the survey for the technical side.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Andrews, absolutely the same process will apply. We will engage individuals that have the expertise to be on the survey committee, and we will also go out and find others if we so desire in order to get the process completed. There is expertise that's required, and people need to be trained to do this, and our manager, Rue Phillips, works diligently to make that happen. So we will actually follow the same process as been in the past.
I know that the survey is to be conducted starting in January, if I recall in the report. So has there been some individuals selected because the committee has not been struck? And just wanted to make sure that those that would be a part of any activity moving forward, again, would be the right people.
Your Worship, through the Councillor Andrews, at this point, yes, Mr. Pete Renshaw and Mr. Peter Buddy Pitt is to this point are on the committee, and we're now looking to find the other couple of individuals to form the committee.
Any further discussion from council? All right, may I have a motion to accept? Yes, Councillor Peters, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. All in favor? Is passed. Item 15.1. This is a notice of motion by myself regarding Ontario Provincial Police costing. The council requests Ontario Provincial Police to prepare a costing proposal for the provision of policing services for the town of Orangeville. Any comments or questions from councillors? Yes, Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Obviously a big election issue, obviously a significant piece of our go-forward plan for the town. You know, I've come to know the OPS, and I have significant relationships with people on the OPP as well. So I guess my point before we vote, and it's just my feelings on the issue, both forces are excellent forces. So this is not a vote for either force or condemnation of either force. People should know that there is other options out there that I know have been pursued over time, and personally I would like to find out more about these things as we go, and those are county council options. There's some partnership things that are ongoing with both boards, with Shelburne. And I think everyone should know today, as we sit here and start this journey, how lucky we are to have Chief Kalinsky leading the Orangeville Police Service. I think for me personally, he's been inspiring and effective in that role. The other thing that I've been asked about as we lead to this date is what is the cost of pursuing this costing? And I did follow up with Ed Brennan, and the cost to get a costing from the OPP is $0. So everyone needs to understand that there is no cost to the town to do this. So that said, it kind of leads to what are you going to do about it? And through consultations with the rest of council and just some discussions that I've had over time, I have come to the conclusion that I will be pursuing this option of an OPP costing. Again, not because I'm dissatisfied with the OPS. My inclination here is simply to pursue the facts, and that is what will guide me in this decision, and nothing else. And I wanted to make that clear to everybody before we voted, so thank you for indulging me.
Yes, Deputy McIntosh.
Through you, Your Worship. A couple of items I'd like to talk about before we do anything on this. The last council, they really left us open-ended on this thing. The Deputy Mayor of the day basically said, I want to leave it for the next council. I had one member of council who spoke to the audience afterwards and said they just didn't understand the numbers. Well, I don't think that's good enough for this town. We need facts, we need figures. Another item I'd like to talk about is a level of service. All I hear about is $4.5 million. I want to make sure when we go forward on this, the level of service is going to remain the same. And the only way I can do that with good conscience is to get a consultant in with the cost it is. I was voted in on that. If we save $4.5 million and spend $70,000 on a consultant, I think that's a damn good deal. But we'll have to see what the consultant has to say. I will be supporting this motion, but I will not go any further after the work's been done unless we get a consultant in to tell us the true figures and confirm what we're being told. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Yes, Ms. Post. Yes, Councillor Post.
I echo the comments of my colleagues as well, and I was actually going to go as far as asking if we can have a bit of a friendly amendment, because I'm happy to go ahead and support the idea of the costing as well, but I have the same concerns that Deputy Mayor McIntosh does. So at the same time that our town staff is requesting this costing from the OPP, would it be possible to request that staff as well check the cost of having a third-party consultant come to review both the numbers and the level of service, because there was a lot of speculation about actual numbers versus service levels through the last process. And I know through knocking on thousands of doors as the rest of us that residents are extremely concerned that perhaps the wrong decision was made through by the previous council. And I think we have to make sure that we have those numbers accurate.
I think that's a prudent move that you've suggested. My understanding is that when OPP costing comes in, it has a 6-month shelf life. So if staff could start a process of inquiring about consultants at this time, I think it would make sense. That doesn't mean we're spending the money at this point, but if we can get some proposals from consultants, I think that would be that would make a lot of sense. I certainly support that friendly amendment. Councillor Taylor.
I just want to share with everyone that the idea of a consultant to me was something I pondered during the campaign. Since then, I'm feeling like I could probably have the critical thinking skills to analyze the data on my own and not spend the public money. That said, I do like the way Councillor Post phrased that, and that is we will look into, I think it's very important for the public to know that we are not in favor of spending money on a consultant. We are looking into the possibility of spending money on a consultant, and that would be a different vote at a different time. So if that's the way it'll be worded, agreed. I'll support the motion.
All right, that's my understanding, that if and when, but because of the 6-month window of an OPP costing, there needs to be a preamble and some pre-discussion with consultants, and I'm hoping that staff can undertake that going forward. So I'd like to ask for a motion. Councillor Post is recommended to amend the current recommendation, asking for a police costing, providing that town staff can start a process today to get some consulting quotations from consultants. Not to spend any money on it, but to start talking to consultants and get some understanding of costing. Is that it? Yeah, Councillor Taylor.
It is. I would also like to understand their qualifications as to why they can be a consultant. It'll be very important that. Right.
And I'm sure staff will vet.
I would like it detailed. Right. What their experience is.
I think that's certainly in order, absolutely. Okay, can we have a seconder for Councillor Post, Deputy Mayor McIntosh? Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. So we have some new business, item 18. This is, I'm sorry? Oh, sure. Do we have any additional notices of motion? No? No? Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Peters. Item 18, so new business, items removed from consent motion to be dealt with separately, and addendum items, Ontario transfer payments, recommendations that report OPSB 2018-01 dated December 6th, 2018, that Ontario transfer payment agreements be received, and the council authorized the mayor and clerk to sign the Ontario transfer payment agreements effective as of April 1st, 2018. May I have a motion to accept the recommendation? Councillor Sherwood, seconder. Councillor Post, all in favor? It's passed unanimously. Okay, 18.1, Emergency Management Program Committee. Whereas the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act of Ontario, Regulation 380-04, S.11, bracket 1, states that every municipality shall have an Emergency Management Program Committee. And whereas the committee shall advise the council on the development and implementation of municipalities' emergency management program, and whereas the committee shall conduct an annual review of the municipality's emergency management program committee for the town of Orangeville. Now therefore, council appoints the following individuals and/or their designates to the Emergency Management Program Committee for the town of Orangeville. Community Emergency Management Coordinator Steve Murphy, Chief Administrative Officer, General Manager of Infrastructure, General Manager of Community Services, and General Manager of Corporate Services, and the Fire Chief. And authorizes such other town staff to participate from time to time as determined by the Emergency Management Program Committee. And further, that the chair of the Orangeville Emergency Management Program Committee shall be the Community Emergency Management Coordinator, Mr. Steve Murphy. Any questions or comments from council on that recommendation? Well, why don't you make the motion? We'll have a motion from Deputy Mayor McIntosh, a seconder, Councillor Peters. All in favor? Okay. Passed 18.1. Let's go into 18.2. This is the appointment of council members to boards and committees. Council approves the appointment of members of councils to boards and committees as follows. Credit Valley Conservation Authority Board of Directors, Councillor Grant Peters. Island Lake Management Committee, Mayor Sandy Brown. Orangeville Business Improvement and Area Board of Management, Councillor Debbie Sherwood. Orangeville Police Services Board, Mayor Sandy Brown and Councillor Todd Taylor. Orangeville Public Library Board, Councillor Grant Peters and Councillor Lisa Post. Theatre Orangeville Board of Directors, Councillor Todd Taylor. Access Orangeville / Seniors Committee, Councillor Lisa Post. Economic and Business Development Committee, Councillor Joe Andrews. Fire Services Advisory Committee, Mayor Sandy Brown. Heritage Orangeville, Councillor Debbie Sherwood. Orangeville Sustainable Action Team, Councillor Grant Peters, and Cultural Plan Task Force, Councillor Lisa Post. And the council direct the individual members of council to collaborate with staff and report to council with recommended terms of reference for the above named special advisory committees. Any comments or questions from council? May I have a motion to accept this list? Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? That is passed. Okay, now, this is, I guess, our final item of the evening, and this is tabling of our 2019 budget by Treasurer Mark Villeneuve. Mr. Villeneuve, you have the stage.
Thank you, Your Worship. Let me just get settled in here. Hopefully you guys can see everything on your screen with the new technology that's in place, and that the sizes of some of these slides are okay. And please, if they're not, please let me know. Perhaps afterwards we'll see what we can do for the next presentations that are coming. Tonight's presentation is really just a very high-level overview of the budget, the first draft of the budget. It's not the intent to go into any sort of great detail. It's really just a really high-level, at-a-glance, to let you know where we're at, what the process is like, and to provide some information that you guys will be digesting over the next 5-6 weeks prior to budget deliberations. The first thing that I want to say is that the figures that you see here also include the Orangeville Police Services budget. Their board has not met yet, and of course the board provides governance over the Orangeville Police Services. And so management has been working just like us over the last many months, 5-6 months, working on budget figures. And so we've taken where their stage of this budget process, where they're at, and however, anytime it hasn't been approved by their governance, it's certainly subject to change. Some of the 2019 budget highlights, the process. Certainly You will note, and we'll certainly walk you through and try and help explain, that we did a lot of redistribution of accounts. We've gone through a bit of a reorganization, and we certainly wanted to move some dollars around and some things around in order to better reflect that reorganization. However, we've certainly made very strong attempts to make it as clean as possible, as easy to follow as possible. Unfortunately, sometimes with a lot of data, it can certainly get complex, but hopefully we'll be able to walk you through that. We've continued to develop our new technology. The auditors had mentioned it earlier. We have implemented some new technology within our finance division with respect to budgeting and financial reporting, and certainly we've made a number of additional steps forward this year. We've continued with the 5-year budget plan. For internal purposes, in our own internal planning as management team, we've actually expanded our capital budgets to a 10-year plan. We've continued with the budget direction from the previous council. Prior to the election, certainly our previous council had provided us with a number of directions, and so we've included those in this first budget. However, of course, it's really ultimately up to this council to decide what that budget will ultimately be. Each division does prepare their own budgets, both operating and capital, with the support of the finance staff as is needed. General managers, once the divisions have all prepared their budgets and cleared it with their general managers, the general managers do meet quite often with the CAO over several meetings to review all those submissions. They prioritize the the corporate projects and initiatives. They consider the budget constraints. They consider if and when to perform the projects. And certainly I can attest that many difficult decisions get made throughout. There are countless staff members, management personnel, and senior management that are involved in that budget process, and I'd really like to thank every one of them for their hard work and dedication. Benefits of the 5-year budget planning. Certainly long-term goals can be identified with a plan to achieve them. It increases our understanding of the longer-term impact of the decisions that we make today. It ensures that the town's plan is consistent with council's vision and their values. It ensures a connection between capital projects and their operating impacts. It provides citizens with more certainty about the direction of the town's services, finances, and future taxation levels. And it certainly makes more strategic use of council's time in reviewing our budgets. The 5-year budget plan, it should support council's vision and values, as well as the town's strategic initiatives. Council directs the staff for the entire 5-year plan. Every year, it actually approves the first year of the budget. So in this case, it'll be the 2019 budget will ultimately be approved by council. The further 4 years is a direction of council. However, it would be approved in principle, and we will take it back to you again for further review the following year with any changes, and you'll have another opportunity at that time. The budget focus certainly has been furthering our strategic plan implementation, maintaining or increasing the level of service, continuing to review how we deliver the services effectively and efficiently, continue support of events, arts, and culture, continue the support of local organizations, continue to invest in technology, continue to increase investment in infrastructure, and continue to invest in our reserves. And certainly, with all that being said, taxation impacts must also be responsible. So some of the previous directions provided by the previous council was to include a cost of living increase to our non-union employees, which certainly make up the vast majority of our employees. Traditionally, we have, with the previous direction of council, used May of each year as the barometer of the selection of picking which month to record our CPI. And we also used to, used Ontario CPI. During our budget work, we recognized that in May, Ontario CPI was 2.9%, and certainly we felt that that was a significant number. And so we alternatively looked at the Canada CPI using the same month, and it was 2.2. And so in this particular budget, we used the lower amount of 2.2. So the figures that you see, there is a 2.2 increase to the non-union salaries of 2.2. We've also increased our annual contribution to the capital budget by 1% of the previous year's levy, which is an additional $350,000. We've increased the annual contribution to the general capital reserve by 1% of the previous levy, as again an additional $350,000. As well, previous council directed us to repay the general capital reserve for $137,000 with respect to this beautiful council chamber. Well, this is even small for me. This slide here essentially provides a very high level view of the net levy requirement. It really distinguishes between our operating expenses versus what we transfer to and from our reserves versus what we transfer to capital to provide what it is that we actually ultimately have to raise in taxes. So starting with the top figure, I don't have a pointer here, but on the left-hand side is the 2018 approved budget. You'll see that you'll see $9.337 million of revenues in 2018. What I'd like to reiterate is those are non-tax levy dollars. Actually, they don't even include our water wastewater, which will be provided in another slide. So these would be more attributable to other user-type fees, grants, and other contributions that we receive as revenues. Our operating expenses are going from $3.9559 million to $40.6 million. And so what this slide basically indicates for us is, you know, when we consider our net operating, we are actually seeing our net operating impact go up by 0.98%, so just a little shy of 1%. And essentially, you know, we forecast quite a bit more revenues this year, which is offsetting some of the increased operating expenditures. Further down below, of course, taxation is raised for more things than just our operating. It's also raised for our reserves as well as our capital infrastructure. So what we see here is that we do see a significant increase in our net transfers to and from our reserves as well as our transfers to capital. Basically, there's a couple of items there, as mentioned on a previous slide, as from previous directions of the previous council. Certainly, we'll be going into more detail in January with respect to these. So what this ultimately, what it says is that our net levy requirement, so this is how much we actually have to raise. So in 2018, we raised $34.884 million of tax levy. In order to fund the budget as currently presented, we would need to raise $36.327 million, or an increase of $1.44 million over the previous year. So in essence, the amount that we would have to raise in the levy would increase by 4.13%. Now, that's how much we would need to raise. The impact to our current residents, as well as our current businesses and our current base, We've seen 1.24% growth. So we anticipate that of that 4.13% increase in the levy, 1.24% would be funded by growth or paid for by growth. And so that would actually decrease the overall impact from the tax levy to just shy of 2.9%. So meaning that our current residential tax base as well as our commercial tax base, industrial tax base, our current residents would feel overall a 2.9% increase with what's currently presented in the budget. This slide here it breaks down the overall levy by division. You will see that, and I won't go through this in detail tonight. We will certainly have lots of discussion about it in January. However, I will highlight to you the second column. So the first column is the 2018 approved budget. In 2019, we've got this column that we've called 2019 Budget Reorganization. You'll see a bunch of numbers going in, out, and everything, and that's as a result of us reorganizing some things, but I definitely want to make sure that you understand that at the bottom it does net to zero. It just means that we've shifted some things around with respect to reorganizing how we view things. And so that's just a bit of a breakdown that way. Our water and wastewater, this slide, very similar to the other one, kind of gives you a high-level view of our revenues and our expenditures. So from our water and wastewater rates. So in this case, we would anticipate that our revenues are anticipated to increase about 3%, and our expenditures are actually anticipated to decrease about 6%. And the net gets transferred to reserves for capital as well as for future needs. This particular slide here is our capital budget at a very high glance, very summarized. So the top half section basically breaks out the capital expenditures by division. And at the bottom half of this particular slide shows how it's being funded. So in this case, certainly we have some gas tax, federal gas tax, provincial gas tax, development charges. Some is being funded by reserves or water and wastewater sources, grants, financing. And at the bottom, highlighted in orange, or I think it's orange, is the impact on the tax levy itself. And that figure is exactly the figures that were directed to us by the previous council. Our reserves, we have many reserves, and some of them are obligatory, meaning that they are reserved for, they're raised for very specific purposes, and they're through legislation. And we have other types of reserve that are discretionary in nature. And really, again, at a very high level, at a glance, we'll certainly have further detailed discussions, is that with the current plan, what we're seeing is a very significant increase in our projection of what those reserves will be using the previous directions of council and using our current plan as it stands now. Our long-term debt, so here we have our anticipated opening balance for 2019 being about a little shy of $33 million. What this is intended to highlight, of course, is what our budgeted debts are going to be. What I would highlight for council is that if you look on the second row where it says new financing, and you'll see $1 million in 2019, $8 million in 2020, and another 2.5 in 2021. That means that within the capital plan, we have 3 different projects in 3 different years that we do intend to finance through debt. And so everything that's presented has been built that way. However, I think I would certainly want to highlight as well that does seem like it can seem like a big number to be financing. What I'd also highlight is that, we would be anticipating that, our opening balance of $32.8 million in 2019, even with all that additional financing by 2023, we'd actually be at, 30.4. So even by adding to that financing, in 5 years from now, will be even lower than we are today. So budget packages, as the mayor mentioned earlier, 500-600 pages, expect that. So we are plugging away. We are putting very detailed, highly detailed budget packages together for both our operating and our capital budgets. We will be posting them on our website by Monday, December 17th. We've provided a link here for our residents that will be able to go online on that date and find our budget documents, hopefully very easily. Council will be emailed the link, of course, to those documents, and essentially we'll have between, I think it's 4 and 5 weeks to digest all the information that'll be there in time for our budget deliberations in January. Certainly anyone, the residents that are here tonight or watching, can always email our budget questions at orangeville.ca with any budget questions. They do come to myself and a couple of others, and we make sure to respond to those. Our budget deliberation schedule, it's been kind of proposed in the past, and certainly can be modified. However, I think tonight we passed all the meetings. And so I guess the biggest highlight would be that our next meetings would be January 21st and January 22nd, back to back. We'll do operating one night and capital the other. And then depending on how those meetings go, we have a few other dates proposed here that'll be available for however many that we would need. And with that, I'd be happy to take any general questions.
Thank you, Mr. Villeneuve. Excellent presentation. Any comments from council here? Any questions? Councillor Andrews.
Through you, Mayor Brown, to Mr. Villeneuve. I noticed on page number 12, and again, I might have missed this and I had some difficulties with my particular screen, but this is back to the provincial gas tax. There seemed to be an omission there. So is there a reason for that on that particular line?
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Andrews. It's not an omission. It's actually my fault for not catching that it's there. We actually use our provincial gas tax in our operating side, and so I should have picked that up.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from council? Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
I'd also like to compliment staff on this report, or yourself anyway, and your staff. Excellent job. I campaigned on a cost of living increase, and I look forward to working with staff to meet that goal. Thank you.
Yeah, I did also want to note that cost of living in Ontario, as noted by Mr. Villeneuve, is 2.9%. And, I think a big part of that is the previous provincial government's minimum wage increase, and that has affected a number of businesses across the board. So that jump in COLA is probably an anomaly, and only for that year. And appreciate that staff has considered to take the Canada-wide CPI into consideration for wage increases. So thank you to staff for coming up with that recommendation. That's all I have to say right now. Yes, Councillor Taylor.
Yes, I'd like to thank you as well, Mark, for the excellent report. I'd just like to caution all people living in Orangeville, and this council in particular, about getting settled in on cost of living. So I do agree that it could be the 2.2, it could be the 2.9, whatever we want to lever to. But personally, I think we should be looking for a budget that comes under the cost of living. And that's what I'll be aiming for as we go through deliberations. So Anyway, thank you very much, Mark, for your presentation. I appreciate it.
You already got elected, Councillor Taylor. Okay. Any other comments from council here? Touche. Thank you, Mr. Villeneuve. Excellent. So as we, sorry, I think that was it for our. Okay, so there's one more issue there, the bylaw, one bar bylaw. Okay, I've lost it here. Oh, you got it? Okay, thanks. Okay, item 19, that the bylaw listed below be read first, second, and third time, finally passed, numbered sequentially, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign accordingly, which is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the town of Orangeville as regular and closed council meetings held on December 10th, 2018. May I have a motion? Councillor Post and seconder, Councillor Peters. All in favor? That is passed unanimously. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Councillor Taylor, seconder, Councillor Post. All in favor? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.